How's everybody? Great. Yes. So glad you came. Oh, yeah. Fantastic. I'm Robert Schwenker, and I'm here with so many other people who've put together this great event. We're live streaming it tonight, so you're being seen from around the world, thanks to Bitcoin Magazine. And we have quite a number of speakers. We have a panel. We have the Blockchain University Academic Committee coming up and talking about the course and what we're doing here. I'm operations lead at the Blockchain University, and this has been organized in a big way with the help of skuchain and Koinify and others. So tonight we will hear from Adam Jin, who's the director of CFLD, which is the China Fortune Land Development Group that owns this building and has many activities, as I said, including running this high-tech startup incubator. So we will also hear from people from Koinify, skuchain, and I'd also like to thank our sponsor, one of our food sponsor, which is O'Reilly. Yes, O'Reilly has given let's give a round of applause for O'Reilly. Thank you, O'Reilly. They sponsored our food tonight, and they have an incredible conference coming up on the blockchain called Bitcoin and Blockchain. So you can see that there. We'll also tweet out a code for a 20% discount. So moving on to one other thanks, we'd like to thank the people from Z-Park Capital, please. So they have helped, they've invested in skuchain and Koinify, and we have the names of the people from Z-Park Capital.
Larry and Sue, you guys want to stand up?
Thank you, guys. Thank you. And so Larry and Sue have been investors in Koinify and skuchain, and really are helping to build out this whole environment of startup activity, particularly in the Bitcoin blockchain space. So without further ado, I'd like to bring up Adam King from CFLD Capital. And after Adam, we'll bring up Adam Ludwin also, and Zaki, and then we'll have the academic committee, then we'll have a panel. Okay? So bathrooms are outside here. If you didn't get a drink, please grab a drink in the back. Take it away.
Okay. Thank you, Robert. Yeah. Hi, guys. It's Adam from Beijing, China, and I'm the director of CFLD Capital. Many thanks to Robert, Tom, and Suren to select this building to the university opening ceremony, and also thanks to Larry and Sue to help us to set up CFLD Capital. The incubator is here because it's my first time English speech in my life, so I will speak slowly so you can hear me very clearly. Okay. Yeah. CFLD is a China Fortune Land Development Company Limited. Is established in 1998. Our vision is a world leader of investment and operation of new industrial cities. New cities. There are many cities in a small area in America, but in China there are towns and villages. So we are to help the governments to build more new industrial cities. Also, our mission is to develop new industrial cities, build cities with high happiness indices, and achieve economic development and social harmony while ensuring the happiness of the people in the regions here reserved. CFLD is a privately listed company in Shanghai, and the revenue in the last year was more than $6 billion US, and this year there will be more than $8 billion US. Also, we in the past 5 years, the CAGR is more than 80%. CFLD has more than 4,000 employees all through the world, including in this building. Okay, our business model have two parts. The first one is a new industrial city, and the second one is real estate. So, and we have three avenues. Yeah, the biggest one is new industrial city, and maybe the average area is about 50 square kilometers. The second one is new technological city. It's smaller, about 1 to 3 square kilometers. And the smallest one is the industrial complex, but is the nearest to the center of the city or downtown. So we have more than 20 development zones all through China, most of them around Beijing, and 3 of them around Shanghai, and 1 of them around Shenyang. In each of the city, there are 3 parts. The first part is about 50%, and it's named the industry zone. The second one is public services, including hotels, hospitals, and preschools, schools, and maybe 10%. And the third part of the industry zone is residential zone for the people in the development zone. So, for example, in Guan, the first new city built by CFLD, there are about 100 square kilometers. In the industry part of the developed zone, we have smaller industrial parks in each new city. And each industry park focused on only one several sectors, such as space tech, biotech, sensors, GPS. CFLD has more than 50 industry parks all through China in our developer zones. This is scene pictures from our industry parks. Also, this one is an incubator in Guan, focused on biotech. Okay. There are in the past 2 years more than 20 startups moved into the incubator. So, as I said, the most important convenience of CFLD's business is to restructuring and upgrading industry. So, where in America is a center of creative, follow patience and innovation, where do great startups continue to emerge. That's right, in Silicon Valley. So that's why CFLD Capital was established here. And what we are doing is to bring high tech back to China. And in addition, we have a pre-A fund and VC and PE. So we prepare CFLD Capital from November last year and have the opening ceremony in February this year. Began to operate in September. In the past 3 months, we have worked with 14 startups in this building. Also, thanks to Z Park partners Larry and Sue to help us set up the incubator and introduce some of startups to this building, including Koinify, including skuchain. Yeah. Besides what I mentioned, industry parks for manufacturing companies who want to look for OEM partners and set up new factories by themselves, or expand their international market in China, we also have incubators, accelerators, and innovation centers in our developer zone. Also, we have 3 more incubators, accelerators, and innovation centers in the coming year in Beijing, Shanghai, and Shenzhen. Its innovation environments are the best in China. And so what I said in the last paragraph is that is why we are different from other incubators in Bay Area. So if any of you or your friends have a desire to work in China or expand the international market to China, please let me know about it. We can really do something for you. Yeah. In the near future, we will set up CFLD Capital official website and interactive screen in this room to give the visitors more information about CFLD and more about China. So, thanks a lot again to Robert, Tom, and Seren. Also known the Koinify and skuchain. Yeah. Also, thanks to Joy and Fiona, the girls who helped to organize this opening ceremony from 3 weeks ago. And in the next weeks, this room or the main conference room on the first floor will be the place for continued training. We talked about Tom a few days ago. So it's our pleasure to do this help in this way. So thanks again and happy holidays. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Adam. And their website is cfld.cn.com. cfld.cn.com.
It's our CFLD's official website in China.
Official website in China. Great. So it's my pleasure to bring up Adam Ludwin of chain.com, and he will be presenting here. Chain.com will also be part of the instructor group, so we'll hear from one of the instructors who's coming from chain.com a little bit later on the panel. So I'll let Adam talk about the blockchain ecosystem. So please give a big hand for Adam.
Thank you, Robert, and thank you, Chris. And since the prior presenter was also named Adam, and it was his first ever talk to a public audience, which is terrifying, trust me, in English, where are you, Adam? So you're gonna give it. You did a great job, so I'm going to do it in Chinese. All right? Here we go. Tell me how I do. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I just explained how the distributed consensus in Bitcoin works, if anyone... Okay. So Chain is a Bitcoin API. I'm actually not here to talk about Chain, but it's a Bitcoin API that lets developers build with Bitcoin. There's also BlockCypher here up front and Block.io here, and we're sort of in the same category of companies. So you can find any of us to talk about helping developers build with Bitcoin more easily. We currently have about 3,000 Bitcoin developers on the platform, over 100 live Bitcoin services that we're powering. So Bitcoin is the worst investment of 2014. It's worse than the ruble, actually. So this was in the news yesterday. So what are we even doing here right now? Why are we here, if that's true? So here's how many people see Bitcoin. There are miners making these Bitcoins, which speculators are buying, which is driving up the price, which keeps incentivizing miners to mine, and so on, until the day that speculators decide, oh, they don't like Bitcoin anymore, and the price goes down, and the miners get scared, and they sell off their Bitcoins, and so on. And that's pretty much the story that you read about in the press about Bitcoin, right? That's more or less it. But there's more to the picture, which is why I know everyone is here. And the other half is that miners don't just create Bitcoins. They also create this secure network, which in the aggregate, the data is called the blockchain. And it's what you'll learn about in this course. And that secure network enables a whole class of new types of applications and a whole world of new things that we can now do as a result of this network, which in turn, because it's using Bitcoin as sort of the engine of the thing, drives the price of Bitcoin, and that creates an incentive to miners. And so really the right half has been the story of 2013-14. The interest in Bitcoin, the big bubble on top of the fundamentals as things have been improving. But really 2015 and ahead is going to be about this left half of Bitcoin. And this is really what matters. And Chain's focus, and also this happens to be the focus, I think, of this class and many of us in the room, is down in that left corner. It's about building things on this network and building interesting new applications. SKU Chain being a cool example of that too. So why are we here then? We're here because we're developers, we're building things, and we're flocking to Bitcoin in massive numbers. So over the last 2 years, the number of GitHub repositories about Bitcoin have sort of grown 10x. And in the last year alone, the number of Bitcoin startups on just AngelList has gone up 5 times, from 100 to now over 500 as of yesterday, startups on AngelList. So what are people actually building? They're building a whole host of things. I just picked these because they happen to be Chain customers that we interface with, and so I sort of can see from our vantage point what people are doing. And there's a host of sort of social apps and tipping services. There are people working on services for the underbanked, so corridors of remittance between places like the UK and Kenya, or the United States and the Philippines. People are building ATMs to bring Bitcoins to physical locations, online exchanges to do digital purchases. They're building merchant tools. They're building wallets of all kinds, financial services products of all kinds, and they're even pushing the envelope beyond financial services. There's a company called OneName, which allows you to store your identity into the blockchain. And so there's just a lot going on. And as you guys think about what you might want to build, talk to companies like Chain, talk to BlockCypher, talk to Block.io, ask us, like, what are people doing, and get inspired about what you might want to build and learn to build. Where are we going with this? So tomorrow, the future, what does the future hold? Well, a lot more for the unbanked. A lot of interesting ideas around how to do resource allocation and metering for the Internet of Things, combining not just people with the financial grid who couldn't be on it before, but things with the financial grid. Light bulbs don't currently have credit scores, and so it can be tricky to do this. But with the blockchain, you can start to do some math that's really interesting. In-game economies and virtual world economies. If you think about Reddit, for example, I know Ryan from Reddit is here today. Reddit in itself is kind of a virtual world. It's a cross-border environment, millions of people from many different countries interacting. What currency or what payment would make sense in that ecosystem? Bitcoin. Same is true of the games that are being developed for the Oculus Rift and in other contexts. People are working on issuing assets to the blockchain that are more than just currencies. There's a whole field of companies and research there. And there's a lot happening as well around entertainment, putting art and works of art and securing digital property with the blockchain. So these are the things that people are doing, you might be interested in doing. And so finally, Bitcoin is here to stay. And I'll just wrap up, because I'm definitely not the most interesting person you'll hear from tonight. But I'll wrap up with, it's kind of dramatic when you pull a piece of paper out of your pocket. What is on this paper right now, Robert? Okay, here's the stats that you need to know. So I'm going to tell you about why Bitcoin is here to stay. And it's so good I couldn't put it on the slide. I didn't have time. So 2012, no funding for Bitcoin really from venture capital. 2013, $100 million went into Bitcoin companies. 2014, over 300 million. So from a rounding error 2 years ago to 300 million this last year. Government officials, including Ben Bernanke, Janet Yellen, Larry Summers, Arthur Levitt, they've all said positive things about Bitcoin. What's more, the largest seller of Bitcoin in the history of Bitcoin is the US government, because the FBI sold the seized Bitcoins from the Silk Road. And so you imagine if the FBI seizes cocaine or guns, they're not going to go and sell those to the general public. But they sold Bitcoin and said, yeah, this is great. Everyone in the auction will like sell it, and if you want it, you can have it. So the government sort of de facto endorsed it and has made more money off Bitcoin sales than any exchange to date. And finally, there have been major reports from all the Wall Street banks, all the sort of Wall Street media outlets about Bitcoin, integrations with Google, Bloomberg, NASDAQ, and the like. And so it's here to stay. Don't let the price dismay you. It's really a long-term game that we're all participating in. And just as with a real estate bubble, it doesn't change the underlying value of the real estate. So keep that in mind and sort of build for the future. And with that, I'll wrap up. Thank you so much, Robert and Christian, for having me.
Thank you, Adam. Terrific. Next up, we'll have Zaki Manian. Zaki comes to us from SKU Chain. Take it away, Zaki. A big round of applause for Zaki.
Hello. So, I guess in the context of what we were talking about all of this future of innovation that's being built on top of Bitcoin, I wanted to express a little bit about why there are these other coins, what they mean, and why Bitcoin is special, and why some of the other coins are still important, like why the job of innovating is not yet done. So you have all these other things, Tendermint, Pebble, Next, Ethereum, Hyperledger. You can go on. There's all these sort of cousins and things that are inspired by Bitcoin. You can talk a little bit about what they are and why they exist. So what is consensus? So Bitcoin is this magical system by which an entire global database is maintained of data, values, time ordering. That ledger is secure, and that ledger is independently verified by everybody who starts up a full Bitcoin node. So just like when, it's not just the miners that protect Bitcoin, it's every single person. You can download the Bitcoin Core, start up a node, and you are verifying Bitcoin's data system and the validity of the blockchain, just like everybody else. And you rely on nothing other than the source code and the data that's available on the network to do so. So what makes Bitcoin secure? So, the term cryptocurrency brings to mind cryptography. The cryptography of Bitcoin is not that special. It's a set of sane, reasonable cryptography choices that we're going to talk a lot about at Blockchain University, but it's not the magic. The magic of Bitcoin is selfishness. Bitcoin is the first system that we've created of distributed consensus where the people who maintain the consensus are financially incentivized to continue to maintain the consensus. The reason why, you throw around numbers like $700 million in electricity protecting mining Bitcoin is because those miners are being compensated for that electricity that's being spent. And this is a unique asset, a selfishly perpetuated system. So proof of work is the system that we use it. Every Bitcoin block contains within it a cryptographic signature of the electricity that went into making that block. So we have this data system now that has the cryptographic signature of gigawatts of electricity that have gone into making that data system, and creating anything like it would require the same amount of effort. So what we look at is now, when we want to attack a Bitcoin system, let's say a miner who has a large percentage of mining capacity wants to attack the Bitcoin system, wants to invalidate a transaction, they not only have to look at how much money they could make by invalidating that transaction, they also have to look at how much money they could potentially lose either by undermining the currency or just foregoing the opportunity to earn the reward for mining a block. So Bitcoin is also something of a fragile system. What we have today works really well. We don't know whether or not it will work that way forever. We've seen a cryptocurrency like Dogecoin this year sort of have its miners abandon it and have flee to other places. We are starting to see these non-monetary applications of Bitcoin where people want to trade stocks and artwork and gold on the blockchain, and those could change the incentives in such a way that the miners now face stronger incentives to do adverse things. And we want to make Bitcoin into a stronger system and a faster system that can process the transaction volumes of the credit card industry, but the underlying limits of the consensus model sometimes provide challenges for that. So Bitcoin is also unique. There's only one proof of work cryptocurrency that has the kind of mining power that stands behind Bitcoin. And so when we do so, when we want to develop these other applications inspired by Bitcoin, sometimes we're facing the limits of a system that is designed basically to be a currency. And so because of that, we are trying to do, there's still ongoing innovation in the Bitcoin space. How to make the blockchain more secure, how to scale it while retaining the properties of proof of work, and at the same time, how do we build new systems that can serve these non-monetary applications and use some of the strengths of the Bitcoin. So there's an enormous opportunity for developers who want to invest in learning about this system, to develop new things, to build completely new systems, to be inspired by the work that has gone into Bitcoin and build something of your own. So we've had this enormous year of altcoins, many of which have failed, and we've learned why they don't work. And so we're probably going to see in 2015 new innovative systems, and becoming familiar with Bitcoin will also give you an opportunity to learn how those systems will work. So that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Zaki. Zaki Manian with skuchain. He'll be one of our instructors. So in fact, you all were just the participants of a slice of our first course. With that, I'd like to bring up the academic committee of Blockchain University. These are the guys who are putting together the instructors for the course. And so we have Christian Peel here, who is he runs the Ethereum meetup. And we also have the Koinify founder, Tom Zing, and Srinivasan Sriram, who is the founder of skuchain. So these guys will talk a bit about what the inspiration for the university was, which is a big name for a small project, and how it's going to run, and everything else they'll let you know. Take it away.
You have to speak because I'm not live yet.
Folks, so we're the newest entrant, that's skuchain, and one of the things that we found was it was really hard to find a structured program on the blockchain. Bitcoin, there's a lot of stuff, and there's a divergence happening, and we are one of the folks who are pioneering that divergence. And that inspired, shall we say, this program. I sent out an email to a few folks. Tom was in that email, and he said, he's been thinking of the same thing too.
Yeah, exactly. Hello? Can you guys hear me? Okay. Cool. Yeah, so I'm the founder of Koinify. We are a decentralized application platform. So what we do is basically we work with the best decentralized applications in this space. And one thing we kind of realize is in this space, you don't have a short of capital, right? Adam talks about $300 million VC. You have a short of developer talents. And I think that's probably the biggest thing we wanted to kind of help this ecosystem to grow and accelerate. So when Sriram talks about this idea of Blockchain University with Chris and me, I was just very excited. I had exactly the same idea, and we thought, we would probably merge the two ideas together and let's create a Blockchain University. Probably the first ever blockchain-focused course for developers, serious developers, kind of to fill in the gap. So, Chris.
Yeah, so I came on I don't know, at least a little bit later. I don't actually know how long later. A week, yeah. So I guess, I'm actually a little bit different situation than a lot of these guys that you'll hear from tonight. This is actually just a hobby for me. I'm an LTE engineer during the day. I run an Ethereum meetup, but I haven't taken the plunge or something. So, to some degree, this is the course that I want to take myself. I'm designing the course for myself. So, I don't know. We have a few things, just very briefly going over what we intend. So, the first half of the course, the first module, will be talking about essentially Bitcoin protocol sorts of things, and these are well studied. The second half will be talking about distributed applications, distributed, things like smart contracts, proof of publication. We'll give you a chance to ask some questions about this later on, but rather than going into details right now, let's just proceed and give you an overview of some of our instructors. So we'll just have some of these guys wave their hand when I say their names. Atif Nazir from block.io. So, okay, very good. Ryan Smith from chain.com. Matthew Ryu. Is that close? Closer perhaps than previously? Closer, okay. From BlockCypher. So Vitalik Buterin and Gavin Wood have agreed to present on this section on smart contracts. Tom Dean is going to lead, and we've talked today with Ryan Charles. Ryan, raise a little bit higher. He's clear in the back. So I think that we will find a place for him. And so Counterparty has also agreed to talk via video. So just to give you a hint, here's an idea of the schedule. It may change a little bit. The idea is lecture, a little bit of hands-on, a lecture or a speaker, lunch, and then we are ambitious enough to think about using the afternoon as well. Okay, and I guess finally, the blockchain university may eventually have the same heft as Stanford, but at least to start with, it'll just be a certificate with a connection with something placed on the Bitcoin blockchain, and a graduation event where hopefully you can meet some blockchain startups. And finally, before we have a chance, the last thing here before questions is that, you can go to blockchainuniv.com, and there's a link there to an application process, and we'll put up these dates up there. We want you to apply by December 31st, then we'll accept you, and we want you to confirm rather quickly so that we can get other people. So, I guess we'll just leave this up there. I think, hopefully some of you have some questions, and I'll go back and give you a mic while we have Sriram and Tom answer them.
Do you want to actually go back to that curriculum in case any questions are
Yeah, we can go back there.
So whilst he's doing that, I just want to give you this 30,000-foot overview. We are right now 1994 for e-commerce in the blockchain. It's going to disrupt so many things we haven't even thought about yet. And it's not the Bitcoin, it's the blockchain. It's a mathematical breakthrough, folks, that has not happened for a damn long time. So Blockchain University attempts to try to sort of bring it all together in a way in which the smart developers of Silicon Valley can actually sit back and say, whoa, this stuff's cool. We can do something with it.
Yeah, actually on that note, we've been talking to some of the best decentralized application projects in the world, and we've seen an amazing amount of innovation happening in this space. We've been talking to game companies who are building a completely blockchain-based games, card games, and then across that you also have something like predictive markets, completely decentralized predictive markets where people actually could involve in using their information to kind of spread the truth. You have applications like a completely decentralized house insurance, all these kind of very exciting applications. And I think the purpose of this program, and we designed, when three of us were designing the course, we designed the first part to be very much kind of more structured because we know how Bitcoin, it has structure there. But on the second part, we leave a lot of flexibility such that those who actually involved, you as students, have the flexibility. We want you to come up with new ideas. We're going to show you some of the sample cases, how powerful blockchain is, but also ultimately depend on you to come up with exciting projects.
So, any questions? I have questions for you if you don't come up with questions for me. Rich, please.
So how are you guys going to fund this? Are you guys, is it just going to be free Mediterranean food every day and no charge?
Yeah, it's free course for now, yes.
So the way we are funding it is actually, fortunately there are a number of companies in this space who are funded and who are willing to sponsor this. So although we are seeding this effort, we have had a number of folks coming back to us and saying, hey, we'd like to help. So yes, the first program is free, but we do have an application process. The idea is we just don't want freebies, It's a serious program. Folks, if you're interested in this, you're going to get a lot of value out of it. And yes, it is free.
How many species are there available? Repeat the question, sir.
Here.
How many species are available?
So we have access to this facility, and I'd say 20 to 30 would be the ideal number. And so we're kind of flexible there, but it's not going to be 100. It's not going to be 5. So in the 20 to 30 range. If there's a lot of interest, folks like Adam and others have suggested a San Francisco venue, but I think that's like a little early today. Today it's going to be this venue and about 20 to 30 folks.
Oh, just a second here. Let's give you a mic since we can't.
What's the prerequisite for this?
A lot of interest and, exposure to software. You got to have some understanding of how to sort of fire up an editor and, run a compile, that kind of stuff. It doesn't have to be any specific language. Fortunately, there are a lot of libraries in different languages from Go to Node.js to Python to C. So, we're not language constrained, but we're interested in, you got to have an engineering bent of mind.
And probably own some Bitcoins, preferably.
Well, it's a blockchain university. That's not a prerequisite.
Any other questions back here? I have a question. Oh, let's see. There's a hand. Okay, please.
Hello, I know this is the first course, but are you guys going to talk about legal implications later?
No.
So the point is, we're attempting to focus on developer, right? There will be some conversation about legality. The fact is, in the blockchain space, legality is not a factor. It's in the money exchange areas that legal issues are a factor. So no, we will not have a lawyer. We won't have that kind of shall we say, a course. But yeah, it'll come up because Bitcoin has a lot of regulatory issues.
Okay, just kind of as an interlude here, if it's okay, I wanted to ask you guys what's why you're taking, why you want to take the course. So I don't know if anybody's willing to shout that out. We have a guy right in the front row. Are you willing to tell us why you want to take the course, or are you willing to say that you want to take the course? You want to take this course? Okay, tell us why.
I like exploring new technologies, and I have an interest in economics and finance, and this is an interesting intersection between my interest as a software engineer and my interest in finance and economics.
Okay, great. And kind of a related question, since we have you right here. I mean, you don't need to answer this, but the question is what is your background, for example? We're interested to know what the background is. For example, do you have a CS degree or you have some programming experience?
I do this. I'm a professional software engineer with a computer science training background, and I'm well versed in economics and finance.
Okay. Is there anybody else that is willing to
So
confess?
FYI, if he applied, he'd be a shoo-in. I mean, so that's the bottom line.
Please, I'll come over there. We'll just, since you're raising your hand, wonderful. Tell us.
Yeah, just take this opportunity to thanks to Tom and Sharif to organize this. By the way, I'm the background. My name is Larry. I'm a partner at the Z-Park Venture. We do invest in Bitcoin technology company, especially those companies who are building platforms like skuchain and Koinify. So if you do have a good ideas, please talk to me or Sue, and we do invest. I do have one question though. So are you going to put the recording online that people can see all over the world?
Yeah, we're going to put it on YouTube, so it's going to be freely available for everyone.
So, Larry, do you want to take the course?
I do, but we do have a Saturday pitch session for all the entrepreneurs. So it's a little bit of conflict, but I'm going to watch the tape. Yeah, or the recording.
All right. Dan, do you want to tell us why you want to take the course? Or you have a question?
I have a question.
Okay, please.
I was just wondering, what's motivating you guys personally to teach this class?
That's a tough one.
Well, just to be clear, Tom is the only one that's teaching here. So, or he might be the only one that's teaching, but we have some other people that are here that we could talk with them. Tom, please.
Sure. So the question, can you actually repeat? You mean what's the personal motivation?
Yeah, why are you personally teaching this class?
Oh, sure. I think it's a really interesting space. Like I think as this gentleman was saying, that his background is he has an interest in economics, in finance, in engineering, and interestingly, I think cryptocurrency is really the intersection between the three. So personally, it was very intellectually stimulating for me, and I can hardly find any other space that is as intellectually fascinating for me. So I kind of wanted to, I think we're all in a very, very early stage, and having these brilliant instructors, I think, here together to kind of assure what we have learned and what we have been thinking about is just very interesting, I think, with the broader community.
We named this location the Consensus HQ. Zaki talked to you about the consensus protocol, which is fundamental to Bitcoin and the blockchain. And we want to make this the locus of activity because I think that we are fairly early on. We understand the space. It's going to be a huge disruption. And, I think we could sort of help the community.
Yeah.
We're going to be discussing...
Here, just a second here.
Just kind of curious as to whether you'd be discussing just blockchain or sort of things like Bitcoin versus Ripple versus a whole bunch of other things as well.
I think actually we're going to focus on blockchain for the first module, where we actually, we're going to focus on the transaction structure, these, the fundamentals. Whereas the second part, we actually wanted to focus on building the decentralized application, right? I think it's interestingly there we haven't even come to a consensus of what exactly is a distributed application or what qualifies for that. So part of that course, I think, is exploration of what exactly makes a distributed application. And during that course, we're going to touch things on like counterparty, Ethereum, obviously being the major platform right now as a foundation to build these things. Ripple, I'm not sure that exactly kind of intersects with that part, but Ethereum and counterparty definitely.
Okay, unless there's one last question, I think that I hear that we're done. It's time for the next session, the next panel.
So sign up, folks. It's BCU-apply. Am I right, Robert?
It is.
BCU, bit.ly, BCU-apply. Do sign up. Thank you.
Thanks.
So let's bring up the panel, please. So I'd like to welcome Tim Swanson, who's a cryptocurrency author of Numbers. He'll be our moderator tonight. And yeah, grab a mic, grab a chair,
Just
and I'll let the other people. We have Ryan Smith and Ryan Todd, Tom Ding, Atif Nazir. Wow, what an incredible panel. We have more than 50% of the blockchain startups in Silicon Valley, closer to maybe 80% in this very room. We're making history here.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Thanks for sticking around. Again, my name is Tim Swanson. I work at a company called Melodic. We are an exchange in Asia, and we have a great panel of really smart people here. How about you guys just each take a second just to introduce yourselves so the audience knows who you are?
So I'm Ryan X. Charles. I'm a cryptocurrency engineer at Reddit, which is a little bit unusual because, of course, most cryptocurrency engineers probably work at a Bitcoin company. My background is I was actually a physicist when I got interested in Bitcoin about 3.5 years ago, and decided ultimately to quit my PhD and join a company called BitPay, where I worked for a long time working on open source Bitcoin software in JavaScript. And just recently, I had this awesome opportunity to bring Bitcoin technology to Reddit. So that's where I am now. I'm building open source Bitcoin technology, and we've got some cool products that we are in the progress of making. So that's me.
So my name is Ryan Smith, and I'm the CTO at Shane.com. And my background is in developer experience. So I'm an engineer by day. I write code a lot. And before Chain, I was actually at Heroku. And so my background is in helping people build applications and making things really easy and really simple. And that's kind of like my bread and butter. That's where I spend a lot of my time thinking, is how to create good developer experiences. So when Adam and I and our partners started Chain, we decided that we needed to bring just a great, beautiful, lovable developer experience to Bitcoin. And so along the way, we've just gotten really excited and really passionate about bringing Bitcoin and the blockchain technology to application developers. So people who have already been building web apps, people who have been writing Node.js and deploying on AWS and toying around with Docker, like those types of mainstream developers, we're really excited about giving Bitcoin and blockchain technology to those people. So yeah, I'm going to be an instructor here, and I'm very honored to do so along with some really smart other Ryans. So I think I'll fit right in. And to answer one of the previous questions about motivations for teaching, for me personally, I'm mostly just excited to get the chance to teach and to interact with people, and it's also a great opportunity to brush up on the fundamentals of the blockchain myself. Like, it's always good to go back and revisit that stuff. So I'm just incredibly excited to just spend some Saturdays getting nitty gritty and writing some code and talking about some protocols. So it was a long-winded introduction, but that's who I am.
That's a good introduction. Now we really know Ryan. My name is Atif Nazir. My background is in highly scalable applications. I used to build some of the top applications on the Facebook platform back in 2007 to 2010. 30, 40 million active users. Back then, it was really hard to do. But you figure out how to do it, and that's the knowledge we're bringing to the Bitcoin blockchain technology. Not only that, but simplification, like Ryan said, is a big thing for us. The reason venues like this are starting to appear, and Blockchain U is the first one of those, is you can't expect a developer to spend months studying the blockchain and trying to figure out how to work with it and then go and develop the tools for it. We want to get you started within a couple of days, maybe 10 or 5 minutes, 3 or 4 lines of code. That's what we're trying to do with our platforms, and that's why we're here, and we're happy to be here.
All right, so first question, easy question. So each week there's some people on Reddit Bitcoin that say, hey, I want to get involved with Bitcoin, I want to be a developer. What would each one of you guys say to them? Like, how can you get involved, and how could learning stuff here at Blockchain University help them with getting involved with the ecosystem? Tom?
Cool. Yeah, so I think one of the thing that I would suggest any developer who want to get into this space is to think about that. I think it's the hardest part I found. Partially, it's the technology part, and gladly we have chain.com, we have Block.io, etc. We're actually making that part a lot easier, and hopefully by 2015 we'll have a really good infrastructure to get there. The other part of that, I think, is the shift in the thinking. So traditionally, you think in a very centralized way. I think that's one of the harder mental barrier I personally found that takes me a while to get there. You think in a much more decentralized way. In a centralized world, you think about how can I concentrate all the resources? How can I monopolize, especially if you're in a business? You try to monopolize resources. In a decentralized world, you think about how do I make my business more trustworthy and distribute the resources and the control such that if I go away or if I go down, no one is going to get hurt or minimize the losses for them. So I think that's the part that I would suggest, people probably take a while to kind of shift into that kind of mindset.
So, first of all, I would say for any developers that want to do something, I would say just build something, right? You probably have some type of idea. If you don't have an idea, you've become interested in the space for some reason. So just build something, even if it's something somebody else has already done. And when you do this, you'll have to solve every single problem along the way. And these guys are hopefully building software and stuff that you can leverage to build something. But that's my number one piece of advice. That's how I've always learned everything. Tools like Blockchain University, when we've got, you guys come, listen to the lectures and stuff and talk with us. We'll give you all the help we can. But I think at the end of the day, you're going to have to sit, at your computer and type stuff out and actually build something. That's it. Put a whole lot of time into making an actual thing.
So I'll just repeat what he said. Hacker's going to hack. The best way to get into this is to come up with a project and just start writing code. And so there's actually a problem there, and that is come up with a project. So how do you come up with a project? Maybe my mic is done. Okay. So one way to think about coming up with a project for Bitcoin technology is, what sort of things could you do with a financial system if there was a great API on top of it, right? I bank with Charles Schwab, and there's no RESTful API, there's no Ruby gem that I can install to interact with Charles Schwab Bank, right? So with blockchain, we have that ability to kind of interact with this financial world, and we can script it, and we can get JavaScript going, and we can just write all these cool things on top of it. So imagine fast track, right? Imagine that was a Bitcoin technology, and we could write cool programs that we fill up our car with gas and with Bitcoin. I don't know, issuing stock for yourself. Just think of creative problems that you just can't do today because for whatever reason, and get those problems loaded into your mind, and get a problem in your head, and then come to Blockchain University and get some fundamentals, and then start hacking, and then it'll all just snowball, and life will be great, and you'll profit.
So, piggybacking off what Ryan said, but not specifically to the financial sector, the way I think about the blockchain is, right now we're familiar with the financial case where we are transferring value from one person to another. What the blockchain does is it replaces the bank. There is no bank. It's a decentralized network. You put stuff in it, it reliably comes out on the other end as long as you put the right stuff in. You don't need a third party to mediate this anymore. Now, the reason we had focused on the financial part of value transfers in our daily lives was, in my mind, there was real value you absolutely needed to transfer from yourself to another person. Now, with the blockchain, you have a network that doesn't cost you anything to transfer value from one person to another. Me saying these words to you, in my mind, this is me transferring value to you. Me publishing an article on the blockchain, like these guys were mentioning in the previous presentation, like me publishing an article on the blockchain, that is me transferring value en masse. And through the blockchain, you can reliably say, hey, Atif published this because this is his address, and no one else can take over his address. Otherwise, you would know or whatever. So if you want to build on the blockchain and you want to disrupt some industries, look around you and look at where value transfers occur. Wherever there's a value transfer, you can do it on top of the blockchain. How? That's for you to figure out. That's where your disruption comes in, right? And that's hopefully what we're trying to do with this course. We want to try break the fold and say, hey, it's not just money. These numbers can mean opcodes for robots executing commands. It doesn't need to be money. And hopefully we'll get that across.
On that note, I could probably just add one point. We've been trying to figure out what's the best metaphor, and there's two metaphors that kind of struck me very deeply. One is think of the blockchain as an immutable database. Imagine, database has been there for 30, 40 years, and just think of it as a SQL database that happens to have an immutable property. Anything that you write it into it, you can trust it will never be changed again. Just think if that database exists, which is the blockchain, what would you do with it? Right. The other thing you can think of it is a beyond database. It could potentially execute code without you trusting the code being changed. Again, immutable property / an API. It's a public API. Anything that kind of touches that 2 point, I think there's some interesting use case around it.
Great. Actually, that comes to the next point. I was going to ask you, each just describe smart contracts, and I guess they call them dApps now. We've seen in the community there's seems to be no consensus on what a smart contract is. Generally speaking, the lowest hanging fruit that people seem to gel on is some kind of financial bilateral exchange that takes place atomically. I guess that's a tweetable phrase, right? So how would each one of you guys define what a smart contract is? And I know in your syllabus, it's in week 6, I think, is what you guys look at. How would you guys each define what a smart contract is?
Yeah. So the way I kind of usually think about smart contract is I would contrast it always to the traditional contract. Traditional contract is a paper contract, and the paper contract is a bunch of I kind of think of lawyer also write code, but it's like they write in English, right? And they define the variable, they define the conditions, and usually it's not enforceable until you bring it into the court. Smart contract is a contract that actually executes itself, as if you have a court, you have a judge, you have a lawyer all in one, and they're self-enforceable. That's kind of the way I see it.
Yeah, I would just say that, so I just have to give a very technical explanation because I'm sitting here trying to think how would I define a smart contract. I don't immediately know other than to say that, built into Bitcoin is this scripting language that you can do stuff with. It's kind of open-ended. I mean, I don't know, you can do any conceivable thing that you look at the operations in this scripting language and invent something. Now, Bitcoin is limited, but then there's also Ethereum and stuff like that. There are side chains. There are ways to use this technology to just do sort of open-ended things. And the unifying theme in all of this, I guess, is the consensus element, right? It's the fact that people can there can be this program that runs that does stuff, and everybody agrees on the inputs and the outputs and what happened, right? So it's very open-ended. It's not like anything else. It's like saying, I tweeted this earlier today, which was saying that Bitcoin is money is like saying a car is a horseless carriage. It goes so far beyond just money that where do I even begin? Calling it a smart contract is it's like using the word contract and the word smart, but it's just not like anything else that's ever happened before. So the sky's really the limit. It's very open-ended.
So those are pretty good definitions, and I won't try and reiterate those, but I'll give an example. So imagine I want to engage in a sports bet. And let's say that I'm betting on the World Series. And I'm originally from Kansas City, so I'm going to choose Kansas City to win the World Series. And I'm going to bet with my partner Adam, and he's going to take the Giants. And so we're both going to agree before we create this transaction that we're going to trust, let's say, ESPN.com. Let's just say that ESPN.com is into Bitcoin these days, and they figured out how to become an oracle, and they're going to participate in the smart contract. So we both agree that we're going to trust ESPN.com to tell us who won the game and to execute the contract. And so we can create these transactions, we can publish them, and then we now have this system that, depending upon what ESPN.com is going to say about that World Series game, they're going to determine who, in fact, gets the money. So I'm going to give money to Adam, he's going to give money to me, and then we're going to rely on ESPN.com or some oracle to determine the outcome of that. And we can just publish that into the blockchain, and we can we don't have to rely on a bookie or any sort of middleman. So it's a really great technological solution to just engaging in transactions between people where arbitration is required.
I have nothing to add to that. You guys covered it all.
Okay, great. So just to raise the hands, how many of you here are actual software engineers or developers? Wow, okay, so that's 80% of the people. So let's actually talk a little bit about, just pivoting a little bit to, I guess, careers. I know our company, for example, we're looking for back-end developers always. How do you guys see going through the blockchain university system, through your curriculum, how do you see this as a way for them to look at a new career or maybe add that as some kind of side project or entrepreneur activity?
Sure. So I think with the blockchain technology, there's a lot of interesting different opportunity. You obviously can look for a job here. There's tons of great startups in this space. There's also the possibility, obviously, you can always be a founder, being here in the Valley. You could also potentially, take it as a side project. And one of the things, for example, Koinify do is we actually use crowdfunding as a way to kind of bootstrap your application. Traditionally, you had the VC funding, you can raise money, but now you actually have an extra route of you can create a token economy around the application, and if people found it valuable, you could sell these tokens to funders. There's different ways, I think, interesting career options there.
Yeah, I would just add that, and it's hard to tell what's going on inside major companies right now, but as best as I can tell from the outside, just about every company in the world is investigating this stuff to some extent. There are people whose jobs is just to research Bitcoin technology inside major corporations right now. So if you learn this stuff, there are lots of opportunities for just a job to have a career in this. I'm also pretty convinced it's going to continue to grow, so your options are only going to increase. Also, here in the Valley, it's kind of unbelievable how much funding right now is going into this space. It's almost cliche to say it, but it's like the early internet, right? It's like this other giant space that's it's a new industry that's growing. There are now Boost VC is now 100% Bitcoin. They're investing 100 Bitcoin companies over the next year or something like that. That's amazing. So if you want to be a founder, the time is now. I mean, this is the space to be in if you want to start a company and do something. So yeah, the options are huge.
So I think by far the hardest part about working in Bitcoin is explaining to your friends and family what it is you're actually doing. Sometimes I just overhear myself saying, well, we're just building this distributed systems, consensus cryptocurrency network. We got smart contracts, we got all this stuff. And it's so out there. And so it's kind of crazy every now and then when you think about it. But you know what? It was crazy 10 years ago to say that you were working on a website or you were building a computer at all. And so there's this kind of weird thing where it's it's edge and it's fringe right now, and we're not really sure if it's a real thing or if it's just kind of hocus pocus. But I believe personally that it is real, and I'm just incredibly excited by the innovation and just the whole notion of the blockchain is what got me excited and kind of pushed me into a career in blockchain. And as Ryan Charles is saying, it's crazy how many big household names are just coming out of the woodwork trying to figure out how they can use blockchain or how they can use Bitcoin. And so there's just tons of opportunities to get a job in the blockchain related space. As a matter of fact, you can get a job at chain.com. We are hiring engineers, and so if you do really well in the class, I know somebody who can get you an interview at chain.com. So I'll leave that on the table.
Yeah, so the last thing Ryan touched on is, you can attend Blockchain U with the idea that you're going to start a business. But when you start a business, you're going to come up with the problem that, hey, you don't know anyone that knows how to work with Bitcoin. Well, you can be that guy. Not everyone has to be an entrepreneur. So, but by all means, be an entrepreneur if you have to. I'm not discouraging anyone. The idea that if I were in anyone's shoe that did not understand Bitcoin and wanted to come to Blockchain U and understand what was going on, I would come with a completely open mind with no results, expectations from the course. I would come in, I want to make the most of it. I know that a lot of people taking the course with me are either very enthusiastic or know a lot about the technology and are still learning. Everyone is still learning. I want to be right where the action is. And once you're there, right place, right time kind of thing, a lot of things will open up to you. What will open up to you, that's for time to tell.
Okay, good answers, by the way. So earlier today, Jackson Palmer tweeted about the original 0.1 code with Bitcoin and how there was originally supposed to be a P2P marketplace built in, I guess similar to what's become OpenBazaar. Now, talking about, I'm not expecting you guys to be building OpenBazaar in your first 8 weeks or something like that, but take us through the app flow of what you guys plan to actually teach these students here. I know you guys mentioned something about a wallet. There's different types of wallets. Can you guys explain maybe some of the apps that you're looking forward to the next 8 weeks?
Sure. We've been thinking actually brainstorming different type of sample applications that both fits in that 4-week, 2 modules or 4 weeks. And I'm very open. We're all very open to the different ideas here. I think the first application we're looking to build is a block explorer, right? So think about a blockchain. The first thing you want to do is you want to understand what exactly is in the blockchain. What does each transaction look like? So that seems like a very good introduction to the use of blockchain. The second application that we've been thinking about is something around being a distributed application. So we've been thinking, so what exactly is an application that really uses the blockchain really well and incorporates different elements of a distributed application? And if you look at distributed application, they kind of have a few characteristics. One, it first of all use a blockchain and some property like immutable property. Secondly, usually has some kind of economic system, right? Crypto is really, one of the key innovation is to bring a value layer, exchange layer on top of traditional application. In the BitTorrent, you have this wonderful data exchange, but it's barter economy. There's no economic, currency layer into it. So you have the token layer. So if you think of something like that, we would think of something around, like, for example, DocuSign. I don't know how many of you are using DocuSign in your work? Yes? So DocuSign is a simple service. Right now it's centralized. You have a server that stores these contracts, legal contracts, and basically 2 people sign. That's a very simple structure. And that kind of thing is a good example of how can you decentralize it. Now you don't have to trust a company like DocuSign. You can trust a blockchain, which has $700 million of base investment protecting these data and not being corrupted, right? So that's kind of thing. You could create a hash of the documents. You can store in the blockchain, and then you could have a cryptocurrency layer on top of it, and start providing different services from actors. So that's the 2 examples.
Yeah, so those are great examples. Let me just add my own sort of history of thinking on this, because for me, and I've talked with a lot of other people in the Bitcoin space, Bitcoin was like this. I felt like I was discovering this whole new era of possibilities that I had just never thought of before. So Bitcoin is like decentralized money, and like I was saying before, it's more than just money. But it just makes me think, like, there are so many other applications of decentralized technologies in general. Taking the same, like, cryptographic primitives, or even the whole system, like blockchains, and using blockchains for other purposes. The applications are just open-ended. At BitPay, we had a motto, which was decentralize all the things. So you can do so much more than just decentralize money. And there's sometimes people don't immediately understand why this is valuable. There's a great article by Nick Szabo that is trusted third parties are intrinsic security holes, or something like that. This is where basically, if you work it out, centralized systems have enormous costs that are basically due to the fact that it's a huge security hole that are hard to account for. Decentralized technologies in general basically lower the costs by orders of magnitude for everything. And so we're only just at the very start of this brand new era of decentralized stuff, which can change everything. It can change, smart contracts, which is this open-ended thing. I mean, it can change so much, it's just ridiculous. That's why VCs are funding all this stuff, right? There are so many things you can do with this technology that it's just huge. So there we go.
So my kind of thinking and my approach to how I'm going to be instructing these classes is that I want to spend a lot of time just focusing on the fundamentals and getting the primitives right, and making sure that the basic building blocks are kind of out there for the students to kind of grasp and understand. And then in the afternoons, when it's just hack time, I'll be around absolutely to talk about any sort of application. And one of the things that I can help out with is, at Chain.com we see all sorts of interesting projects and interesting businesses that are being built on top of the blockchain. So I have a really good perspective and can kind of help guide and potentially speed up the thinking of how to build applications on top of the blockchain.
Yeah, and my idea would be a complete opposite. Take it from the top, and go down to the bottom as the class goes. But the more angles we have in the course, the better the students' intake might be. One of my professors used to say, and it really used to agitate me when he would say this. He used to say, "If I don't confuse you, how will you learn?" I'm like, "What does that mean?" And then after a few years of being angry at him, I understood that I really needed to rack my brain. I really need to fight my way from a maze of whatever demons I was in order to be stronger at the end. And maybe we'll try to confuse you. Maybe not. We'll see.
Okay, so other than your own projects that you guys are working on, like so to give these guys an idea of what you could build beyond block explorers and wallets and so forth, what are some interesting apps that you see in the ecosystem that you are not affiliated with? I know it's Chain. You guys have ChangeTip and one name. You guys have recently worked with Gems. Obviously, you guys are taking over the entire social media sphere, and you guys working with Doge community and stuff like that. So could you just describe to the audience, or maybe even your students, what apps you think that they could have a chance to either to toy with or to look forward to as they progress and mature in this new nascent field?
I'll go. So I think that something that I'm not personally involved in really, but it's sort of on my radar that I just think it's really cool, and it's something that almost from the day I discovered Bitcoin, I recognized the need for something like this, is decentralized exchange. So this is stuff like Counterparty and Ethereum and also sidechains make this type of thing possible. So this is just where basically rather than, if you want to exchange something, and in the Bitcoin world you might want to exchange like Bitcoins for dollars, you just deposit your Bitcoins and you deposit your dollars and you trade with other people via this sort of centralized website or whatever. But it sort of violates the principles of Bitcoin, which is it's not decentralized. And there are ways to exchange stuff that leverage the technology of the blockchain to exchange. So you can't exchange for dollars in a bank, but you can exchange for sort of IOUs for dollars in a decentralized way, and you can exchange for anything else that's digital. So I'm like not involved in that stuff at all, but I just think it's awesome, and that's exactly the type of technology that's gonna change the financial system soon. That's how important I think that stuff is. So.
So one app that I've always kind of wanted to build, but I don't have enough time to do so, so I hope maybe one of you will. But I would love to see a ticketing system built on top of the blockchain. And so you can imagine that, like, if I bought tickets to Taylor Swift concert, which I definitely would. So I bought them from Ticketmaster, and then I decided, you know what, I'm not really that into Taylor Swift anymore. I didn't like her new album, so I'm going to sell them on Craigslist. And so I have like these printout tickets, and let's say that I photocopy them, and I copy 5 of them, and I sell them 5 times on Craigslist. And then now these 5 people who have bought my tickets are all going to take those tickets, and they're all going to race to the door to get in a day ahead of time to go see Taylor Swift. And only one of them is going to get in, and it's not really sure who's going to get in. It's whoever's there first. They bring the ticket, they get it scanned, and they get to go in. And that's kind of a bet. We can do better. Like, we have software, we have databases. Like, we can solve this problem. And so one idea is to use the blockchain and use this concept of colored coins to issue tickets onto the blockchain, so that when I buy my ticket with Ticketmaster, I present them, my Bitcoin address, and they send me this Bitcoin, and who cares what the value is? It could be very small, it could be negligible, pennies or whatever. And now I have this ticket. And so I can decide that I can sell that ticket on Craigslist, but doing so on top of the blockchain gives Ticketmaster or any other company who's selling tickets this mathematical system, this provable system that whoever presents the ticket at the door, like they are for sure the person who owns it. Like, there's no other way that you could copy it. You can't fool anybody. And so that could be like a really interesting company that could get acquired by Ticketmaster for $250 million. So I would love to see somebody build that here.
Or you buy Ticketmaster.
Good point.
I personally would love it if the blockchain technology was used to get rid of the domain name system. That sounds weird when I say it like that, because everyone in the Bitcoin community, they're trying to come up with a domain name system for Bitcoin. So what they're trying to do is Atif Nazir. Who is Atif Nazir? There's a public key that is a Bitcoin address. That's what they're trying to do, right? With the typical domain name system, you have, here's an IP address, very complicated, hard to remember, and then you have atifn.net on top of it, right? That is the domain name system. Get rid of that domain name system, because that is in control of central parties, right? So the way you could do that is have an address be associated with a website. And whenever that website needs to change IP, so for example, Pirate Bay could be impossible to shut down with this. Maybe, maybe not. But it really takes care of the third-party dependence that we have on the entire internet. The entire internet is supposed to be decentralized, supposed to be under no one's control, but it actually is under a lot of people's control. And they can act together, and they do act together at times when it's needed. And that can be gotten rid of through Bitcoin, or the blockchain, rather. It's a very abstract idea, but I know it can happen. And I really hope it happens in the next few years.
Okay, so Ryan Charles, he mentioned something called colored coin. Basically, if you're not familiar with that, it's basically you take a fraction of a Bitcoin, like a millibit, you effectively watermark it to represent a physical asset or some other digital asset. And that idea has been around for a couple of years now, and we've moved on to, I guess, different meta protocols, including Counterparty and Ethereum. So my question to you guys is, where does that fall in your guys' curriculum? Are you guys going to be teaching these guys how this watermarking process takes place, how you could represent real assets? I know you work in the 2.0 space especially. By the way, 2.0 is just a term we're using for this beyond Bitcoin itself. So it's not like there's a standards committee that said this is 2.0. It's our de facto terminology in this space. So, Tom, how would you see the curriculum kind of grabbing a hold of this idea?
Yeah, actually, the 1.0, 2.0 is actually a metaphor fits pretty well here. Like our first module, I think, is the classic 1.0 definition, where we focus on the low-level transaction stuff. Where the module 2, basically beyond Bitcoin and specifically on distributed application, because it touched on so many different points. So I'm not sure. I don't think we're actually going to probably cover too much about color coin, given that the whole industry has been mostly moving on to counterparty, Ethereum type of meta protocols. So I think that's the thing that we're definitely going to cover and spend.
Shots fired. I think he's wanting to do colored coin over at Reddit.
Sure. Let me advocate for colored coins. May as well. So colored coins are the space has sort of almost intellectually sort of moved past colored coins. Colored coins have been nowhere near as exploited as they could be. They're very, very useful. I mean, for one, you have the security of the Bitcoin blockchain. So you don't have to worry about things like, to my knowledge, I don't think Ethereum has launched yet. So that's not an option yet. I could go on about this, but Counterparty is wonderful, but it's not perfect. And there can be lots of reasons why you might want to just use plain old colored coins for digital assets. So they're a totally valid option, and there are real companies with real clients building real stuff right now on colored coins. So it's not quite as exciting just because colored coins don't have a lot of the features that, say, Counterparty has. But they have a lot of advantages that make them really appropriate for certain tasks, including possibly the thing we're doing at Reddit, although we are not committed to any particular protocol at the moment. But they're a totally valid option for a lot of applications. So.
Well put.
Thank you.
I have nothing to add.
I think we're actually kind of coming close to time. Are there any questions from the audience to your future faculty members that they could probably answer?
I actually have a quick question if nobody's willing to. Let's try for anybody willing to offer a question, or shall I give my quick question? And that is, what's one of the cool things that you love about the Bitcoin protocol? This is for our teachers that you hope to teach. Something, I don't know. I mean, there's got to be some things.
Can I give things that aren't cool?
If you want, yeah.
Okay, let me give you some things that aren't cool. Okay, first of all, just because as soon as you say that, it's like, look, obviously I've dedicated my life to Bitcoin, right? So the whole thing is cool. There are so many little quirks that if you're going to develop stuff based on Bitcoin, oh my gosh. So let me give you like the number one. It's almost become like the standard quirk of Bitcoin because it's so ridiculous. There's something. So there are different ways to sign a transaction. You can. Before you sign it, you have to hash the transaction and get a little thing that can be signed, you blank out parts of the transaction depending on what type of signature you want to make. And there's something called sighash single where you blank out everything but your input and your output. And there's just this like classic bug that like people weren't even aware that this bug existed until I think it was Peter Todd somewhere on the order of a year ago just sort of noticed this and pointed this out. where if you're trying to do sig hash single and there are more inputs than there are outputs, it doesn't sign the hash of the transaction, it signs the number 1. It's just a completely ridiculous bug. Like if you look at the source code, it's just obviously a bug. And Bitcoin has tons of little things like this. Here's another one. This is another one that just, like, you start implementing this stuff, it's so annoying. Bitcoin uses every type of number that exists. It uses big endian, little endian, 2's complement, sign magnitude format. It uses floating points. It uses non-floating point, like a decimal stuff, depending on what part of either in the Bitcoin protocol or in the interfaces. So it's just like there are so many obscure details that it's very annoying to slowly solve all these little bitty problems so that your thing can work. So anyway, those are the things I don't like about Bitcoin.
So this Ryan's going to teach you all of the very complex, like abstract, advanced stuff, and I'm going to pay attention to him because I need to learn a lot about that. But I'm going to cover like really simple things that I think are important to know about Bitcoin, and they're cool because they're going to save you money. And one of the common pitfalls when you first get started in Bitcoin is understanding this thing called change. And when you want to transact with a Bitcoin, there's something you have to know, and that is like you consume a previous Bitcoin that's been sent to you, and when you consume that previous Bitcoin, you have to use all of it at that time. And so if you don't use all of it, like let's say that I have 1 Bitcoin and I'm going to give half to Ryan here. I have to consume that entire Bitcoin. If I don't and I just give him half of it, the other half goes to the miner, and you never get that back. So you will lose money if you don't understand how change works. And so we're going to talk about these kind of fundamental concepts that will just save you a lot of time and money.
So it really depends on what part of the course I will focus on. But if it's the first part of the course, that part will focus on exactly how to think about the blockchain. What is the blockchain? It's just a node of computers connected together, right? What does that do? My node is connected to the network. That's awesome. I have a few hard drives in there. You could call it blockchain, right? No, it's a little more complicated than that. And that's what I'll be focusing on. So it'll hopefully be an on-ramp to the more complicated stuff you guys are talking about. And hopefully, by the time I'm done, they'll be able to build an Explorer, and then you can take it over and just break it all up.
Any other questions in the audience?
I'm not certain if this is live. Oh, yes, it is.
So in Adam's presentation, he read off a bunch of figures from a sheet of paper that I think did a great job of proving how well Bitcoin is doing like at this moment. But I think just because Bitcoin has been doing really well in the past 2 years, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's like here to stay or whatever. So what in particular convinces you guys that Bitcoin is like the future?
Bitcoin to me is the future because you're removing central parties from transactions of trust. Very abstract. It took me a while to understand what I was saying, but I kept saying it, and I eventually understood it. Any value transfer that occurs on Earth, if you want it to be reliable, if it means enough to you, you are going to pay someone to handle all the disputes for you. The network takes that out. That means more value is going to be transferred between people than it has ever been before. And to me, that's a huge incentive to keep something alive. And I believe it will, just because of that.
Can I just add something that, so when I got into Bitcoin about 3.5 years ago, I studied it for a long time, and I was convinced that Bitcoin would take off. And I was convinced not just because, first of all, I studied the technology and I thought that it was sort of correct, that it was what it was claiming to be, which is this sort of decentralized, it's not just money or whatever, it's this sort of decentralized platform. But it got the economics right. So it's not just about solving the cryptography and the peer-to-peer networks and stuff. It's about the fact that there are only 21 million Bitcoins and people just want to have some of this stuff. And so I know the price has been falling. I doubt that's going to continue all the way to zero. All this venture capital money and stuff that's flowing into this space right now, we are building like the infrastructure that's going to enable the next price rally. So I think it will take off because of the network effect. Consider the fact that, what are the competitors of Bitcoin? If Bitcoin does things like it lowers the cost of transaction by orders of magnitude compared to the legacy financial system, the legacy financial system can't compete. The only competitors of Bitcoin are the altcoins and other technologies like Ethereum. I don't think they're going to compete with Bitcoin because Bitcoin has a huge, huge head start. And so long as these problems in Bitcoin can be solved, things like we want like Turing-complete scripts and stuff like that, so long as they can be solved, and I think they will be solved around Bitcoin. So I think it will take off because of the network effect. Everybody in this space has an incentive to sort of rally around common technology so we're not wasting our time building yet another altcoin, right? So it's the network effect. I think it's very likely that the network effect will ensure that Bitcoin will ultimately sort of win and really be the platform of the future financial system.
Any other questions? Oh, we got one in the back.
Yeah, there's so much happening in the Bitcoin space. How do you guys keep up with everything?
That's tough. And yeah, it's a daily struggle. Reddit, that's the way to go.
I'll just say that I literally gave up on that years ago, so that's not possible.
Just separate for between 2 to 3 hours every day. Just read Reddit through every comment, and you'll get a few laughs out of it as well.
Oh, for what it's worth, if you do want to stay up to date, I recommend the developer mailing list. Just read the messages on the developer mailing list. Also follow Bitcoin Core on GitHub. Watch the GitHub repo. And just pay attention to what the Bitcoin Core developers are like actually doing, right? That's like sort of the bottom, base of the whole thing is what they're working on. So if you can keep, and you can keep track of what they're doing, then you'll be clued in. You'll know what's going on.
There's tons of great meetups in the city and in the valley. So get involved in those and talk to people and just make friends in the Bitcoin space, and information will, it'll find its way to you.
I believe that's it. So thanks so much for your guys' time, and thank you guys for coming.
Wow, what a night. It's a historic night, right? Wow. Hey, we want to give a quick thanks to Ryan Taylor from Bitcoin Magazine, who's live streaming this all around the world. Big thanks to Ryan. And thanks to our sound guys in the back who are just done an amazing job. The sound has been like perfect, right? Wow. Big hand. And lastly, to Sue Shu and Larry Lee, awesome, really. You have made it happen for us all. So much thanks. And let's, since this is a historic moment, let's do, before we go eat pizza, there's lots, there's 400 pizzas out there. Let us have a group photo to make history. Come on up. Put your best smile on. Bitcoin is going to go up. And we'll... Group photo, women in the front if you want, big tall guys in the back. Just move the chairs back. Move the chairs back there. Let me grab these mics. That's you. Yes, yes.